Warming up.
At times it felt like everybody was Mark Wahlberg
Yes.
delivering lines.
Yes. We just saw the M Night movie old. We're processing it. We're generally disappointed.
But
But
what about the bees? Kulang na lang ganun.
I really feel bad for Gabby.
Ah,
I was very excited to see him in that movie, but uh, that was bad.
bad, sad, not glad. Anyway,
Mhm.
we're going to reshare stuff first.
So, for those who are watching this in the future, this is a recorded live stream.
Oh yeah,
We
yeah.
will start in a few minutes. So, right now, we're just manually resharing all our links to our friends, etc. Feel free to jump a few minutes forward if you want to see the start of the show, or join us right now as we babble and prep.
Because we watched old. Okay, other than talking about that, because that might wander into spoilers, but I don't want to dedicate an episode to that movie.
No,
Um, um,
no, we won't.
there is also the weird discovery that the razor blade that we've had for years turns out to be a model
Turns out to be a gadget.
with a battery in it, and we had no idea.
And I really don't get who would have come up with the idea of, I know, let's make the razor vibrate.
Yeah,
And let's see how that vibration makes it smoother in shaving. So yeah, that was hard. That was hard to believe. I still want to test it though.
change the battery, I
Yeah,
guess.
we have extra batteries. We'll be starting in a few minutes. Facebook is running.
No, copy the wrong thing.
YouTube is running. Uh, Resharing now to Twitter.
Yeah, I'm still doing that. Such strangeness in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening? What does it mean?
Hey, Mitch.
Many concerns. I'm
Man,
just grabbing the YouTube link.
I really wanted to like that movie. I really wanted to like that movie.
And then we were thinking like, ooh, there. I guess if there is a twist, it's gonna be a really striking one, because they already revealed the premise of the
Mhm.
the beach in the trailer.
Well, it still did have one in the end, but it felt very low key twist.
And it was a long journey to get there.
And I always feel that twists are a struggle to appreciate when they have to be super elaborated on.
Mitch, we have no reason for our shirts. I just wanted to wear dinosaur shirts. The games in question are not about dinosaurs. Oh, can you grab like the other exit for reference? Choose either the one in the. There's one in Fog of Love.
There's none behind this.
Yeah, there's one in Fog of Love, and there's the one on top of Atlantis. Isn't there one in Fog of Love?
No, it's just Lost Legacy.
Oh, I guess not. Okay. Yeah, just so that we can.
What I'm wondering
What's
about
there?
is a surface.
Hmm? We'll start very shortly, but I guess our recap is don't pay to watch old. That is
Well,
not. It's not worth paying for.
like
Like
you still can. It's just that
no, okay. That's what I mean is you can watch it, but like wait for it to come out on Netflix or
yeah,
HBO. Like you're already, it's like part of something. But don't. I wouldn't dedicate money specifically to that movie.
yeah.
Let me give you a no. It's like a very like. No.
And what frustrates me is that it had potential for so many good visuals,
I think
and it didn't.
yeah. It's like I think every time the camera panned, I wanted something to happen when we panned back.
Mm-mm. And maybe there was, but it's like too subtle to notice.
Mm-mm. Mitch, the movie old, the other we finally watched the new M Night movie, which is why we also did the M Night episode other than the letter M. Okay, uh, we'll queue up the intro video and get things started so that we can talk about our featured board game for today. So one moment as we get things started.
Oh yeah! Really right!
This is Toby,
And this is Rocky.
and if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, our little space on the internet where we talk about anything.
It's completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us as we talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. It's a Monday, and we're sorry we weren't around last week. I was down with the vaccination shot. But this week, we are talking about a game line which we got really into to the point that we are really trying to collect each and every
We're
one.
still generally into it, but we also know that it's been going on for a while, and so not all of their releases are created equally.
Mhm.
But they added something different for this one, which gives us something to talk about.
And that is the exit game, but this time with puzzles.
Depending on which one, I think the first one on Board Game Geek lists it as exit the game plus puzzle,
Mhm.
and then sometimes it's
I gotta move a bit.
but on the Cosmos website it's like exit the game parenthesis puzzles. So uh, there are two editions so far that are still so for comparison. The original exit the games are generally all this size, so this is about twice as wide,
Mhm.
about the same height, and instead of just being an escape room in a box with cards,
Mhm.
it is now an escape room in a box with jigsaw puzzles. Specifically, four puzzles.
Similar to all other exit games that have come out, the game still does have you destroy components, which I know is a tricky thing for certain gamers.
Mm-hmm.
It still uses the ever infamous decoder wheel, as you can see there, and we
Yes.
shall show a little bit more when we open it. But beyond that, it does have its nice share of little tricks and surprises.
Mm-hmm.
So, shall we try opening one of the boxes?
Yeah, so there are the two sets that were released are the Sacred Temple
You can have
and the
stuff like that.
Deserted Lighthouse. The Sacred Temple is slightly easier than the Deserted Lighthouse one. It's not bad. So, what do you get in the game? You get, and careful, they're open now, but you get four bags of puzzles, and to differentiate the puzzles, the backs are marked differently. Whether it is like smooth or no pattern, where
Mhm.
some have dots, some have lines, some have whatever. So that helps you differentiate which of the puzzles to put together. It will come with several booklets, and these sort of represent the. How would I compare them with the original exit?
They're the riddles.
Yeah, they're the riddles. And before you would see these, you would partially see these on cards, and now we
Mhm.
get them in separate booklets. You have
Uh,
the rule book,
As always,
and then you will have additional components specific to the
Mhm.
puzzle. So in this
we'll
case,
show a brief of one.
yeah, we got wax paper with something on it. You always get the decoder wheel, but in this case, you must assemble the decoder
Mhm.
wheel because they saved on labor costs. I don't know.
Yeah. So suggests the different components that were present in the thing after we've used it.
Yeah. There is a companion app for Cosmos exit games, but it's largely a timer and a looping music track.
Mhm.
And that's about it.
So just like most exit games, the decoder wheel becomes your best friend in finding out, oops, our lights are too bright, whether or not you are solving a puzzle correctly. By looking at the different colored locks at the top, You can then enter the three-number code to see whether or not it's correct. But unlike before, where you look up front,
Well, before there would be a your but just when you're going to enter the code, you would draw a particular card that would
mhm,
come up in the deck. The card would show you pictures of all the possible puzzle locations in the game, and then you would then compare your code number with the picture on the thing, and then you will find the card in the deck, and then if that card has the answer, then you solve the puzzle correctly. But if it didn't have the right answer, then you're close, but you're somehow wrong.
mhm.
This one now has a little window on the back that replaces that function, which I felt was a good innovation because again, if you look at this, there are no cards at all in this set versus
Yes.
the original exit
Nope.
would have the riddle cards,
The
the,
puzzle cards.
the puzzle cards, the clue cards,
Mhm.
and all these things, and then the hints. Um, in a similar fashion, just to let you know, so they got rid of hint cards because they're now in the back of the manual, and there will be the colors represent the different puzzles, and then there is a specific way you'll open it to get your hints if you get stuck.
So each one is you can play them alone. It allows 1 to 4 players, possibly even more than four. But I think again,
Too many heads at the table.
mileage may vary. Each one clocks at around 2 hours in terms of gaming time.
Which is
Um,
ironic because it says, I mean, like you're aiming to finish it in an hour for maximum points,
yes.
but the box does state it is a 2 to 3 hour game. To compare to the original exit, they time original exit as 1 to 2 hours,
Mhm.
and it's really the extra time is because there are puzzles.
So what can we say about this?
The so I was kind of excited because I've been like every now and then I mentioned to Toby that I've been hankering to put together a big jigsaw puzzle. I
Mhm.
have fond memories of summers with my grandma, and she would normally lay out one of those big boxes of puzzles on one of the dining tables, and then anybody could pass by, try to assemble, and then get them. Oh, hi, let and and move on from there. So I've
Mhm.
been wanting to do that, but we don't exactly have space to put a puzzle together. So this was a nice little compromise. Like, oh, it's still an escape room game, but it's
Mhm.
also a puzzle. So that sounds fun. In practice, it's very challenging because,
Yes.
of course, the first gate or the first challenge of these puzzles is the fact that you do not know what they look like. There is no reference to the scene,
Mhm.
so
So unlike usual puzzles wherein
you
you
can look
have
at
a
a
reference
box.
image in the
Yeah.
cover or like a poster that you will try to recreate in terms of the puzzle pieces, here you work blind. Each bag consists of a lot of colored pieces with very similarly shaped parts.
Yeah, and
And
the sorry, and it's smaller than this. Sorry, this is not the size of the puzzle piece.
Mhm.
It's the one in the back. But yeah, so sorry. Go on.
Yeah, I lost my train of
I'm
thought.
so sorry. I'm sorry. I got frustrated. I wanted to show I forgot they're all taped. But so very briefly, uh, I don't know if you can see, but there's a reference to the size of the puzzle piece. So they're not very big puzzles,
Mhm.
which is fair. Um,
The game also tries to throw you in a loop by approaching puzzles a bit differently. Commonly, when people work on puzzles, they find a piece, they look for colors that match that piece, which typically mean those pieces go together. Here, they were devious. They found ways to make sure that in the image, if let's say we have Rocky as part of the puzzle, where his head and his shirt are delineated by the collar, the edge of the puzzle piece would have one part for the gray and the other part for the flesh
yeah, it
tone.
could probably be like a curve right here
And
just to
then
make it
and
harder.
that simply means when you look at them, they don't look like they go together. But then when you try them,
They fit.
they work.
So and the oh my god, I don't know how you consistently do that across all of these puzzles.
Yes.
So it was because even the classic strategy of I'll work on the borders first.
That was
So
hard.
hard to do because and a lot more often than not the borders are almost monochromatic.
Mhm.
It's a lot of dark scenes.
It was amazing how the pieces individually looked, okay, I don't get what this is. I don't. But then the moment you snap them
It's like
together, it's a face. It's a skull, and that was such a good moment. It was frustrating, but it does feel like a payoff whenever you
yeah.
fulfill it.
So I didn't hate the puzzles. I didn't
Mhm.
hate the puzzle assembly aspect of the game.
I hated how dark our unit was, so it was kind of hard to work on the puzzles for me. Um,
We
even with the ring light,
yeah, we turned on the
uh,
Baduy Pride lights, so to
we
speak.
had the challenge of the puzzle pieces sadly being glossy. And board game creators out there, please keep in mind, shiny parts seems okay unless you have lighting that bounces on them.
Yeah, and of course, like you're trying to like find clues, and even putting a flashlight directly onto the
Mhm.
puzzle pieces does not help. So there was that angle. But then once the puzzle is assembled, if you remember, normally in most um, classic exit the room games, there's typically a booklet for the
Mhm.
puzzles, and then sometimes the booklet would have a lot of text. Maybe sometimes it could depict scenes of a map, and
Yes.
then you would interact. So the puzzles played that function,
Yes.
and typically depict the location that you have moved to, quote unquote,
Mhm.
in the narrative of the game, um, but didn't necessarily do much beyond that. So it's the weird image with certain items that clearly don't belong, and then you kind of figure out things from there.
Don't mistake, however, that the puzzles don't add a huge layer to the experience.
Mm, mm.
The puzzles, once built themselves, become the material for the next few riddles you have to solve. And we are trying not to spoil things, but those may include thinking out of the box on how those puzzle pieces work. And that was frankly quite impressive.
Yeah, so I did like the moments where the fact that this was a puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle,
Mhm.
came into play.
The
And
fact that you could manipulate or move pieces
yes,
suddenly became, wait a minute, what
yeah.
if we black black
So we
black?
had a lot of moments like that, like they can't possibly mean, and then I would gather
Mhm.
pieces and stuff would happen.
Sadly, however, that strength also becomes its weakness because many instances did have us going down the wrong road
Mm.
because we saw little things that actually meant to point at a different puzzle.
Yeah,
So, unlike the earlier exit games we're in, since there is some level of control of what cards are released at a certain point in time, here it was like the moment you finish a puzzle, maybe there are four riddles and you can see all their clues already. And you don't necessarily see which ones connect to which.
mm.
Because sadly, without the cards and only these booklets as the source of the next narrative, they typically did not add enough fiction or instructions as clues on how to solve a puzzle.
Which is a shame because
Mhm.
normally we praise Exit the game's escape room experiences for their narrative, that
Yes.
they tend to have a lot of strong stuff. But I guess because of this arrangement where there is typically little, there's no info dumping happening on the
Mhm.
puzzles, and then you only have so much to cram into the booklet. It's a one pager, it's a one fold thing, and then that's it. So, so the narrative definitely suffered. I
Mhm.
felt this time around, especially because sometimes these booklets also have pictures or diagrams, which you would normally find in the original exit booklet
Mhm.
or cards.
We're not sure if it was an attempt to reflect the difficulty that each game was rated on,
Mm.
but we felt a lot of the riddles were simply introduced with things that you didn't even really need to be given. For example, in one riddle, it simply says, you notice two strange containers, and then it leaves it at that. And it was up to us to realize, okay, these are the containers, okay, these are the hints, okay, this is what we're trying to figure out.
Yeah,
Whereas in older exit games, there would be some implication as to what you're trying to do. And the choice of words nicely gave codes as to how you would manipulate things.
yeah, and they would normally lay out like what your objective is,
Mhm.
or because they had more depth because of the cards and the cards plus the rule book, then the reveal of the locks, which has always been the gate in exit, you look for pictures of locks.
Mhm.
You'll typically see one to two locks per
Mhm.
scene.
And then you find more as you progress.
Yeah, and this one, because you're limited to the four puzzles, you tend to have three to four, but potentially,
Yeah.
or some of them aren't even depicted but are implied.
Yeah.
So it's a lot that's dumped onto each puzzle.
And then I think one of the sad things here is that the puzzles had less of a direct correlation to what you're doing.
Mm,
In the older exit games, um, let's say you are digging for this, and then you'll find yourself doing something which sort of feels like you're digging, or you're trying to stack these things. So you'll end up cutting them, and then you literally are now stacking them to do the solution.
yeah,
In this game, um, there were instances wherein okay, you're given visual clues, and then if you deduce it, you'll realize what to do. But in the context of the fiction, you don't get what you're doing.
yeah, yeah. There was a. It's a lot of because it's a lot of like you are in a jungle, assemble this puzzle, and that's it.
Or at least without really giving out something direct. It's like you go to a puzzle escape room and then you see lines on the wall, and suddenly the solution is to do something with those lines, but it has nothing to do with the fact that the setting is a hospital.
Yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking
So it
about.
was frustrating in that way because of course when we play this, at least I don't know about other people, but we like embodying if we were in the island.
Yes, we
We
embrace
like
the fiction.
we like looking around, we like thinking, okay, since we're in a cave, maybe this is something that we have to light it up and stuff like that. This version of Exit didn't quite approach things in that way.
Yeah, and then of course we were thinking like maybe because it's also our first try. So we played both sets. We played the Sacred Temple and the Deserted Lighthouse because we have both. The Sacred Temple is a three difficulty and the Lighthouse is a four.
Mhm.
But and then like I felt like the use of puzzles here was a bit trickier because it wasn't super gated in the
Mm.
sense that in this one, once you're done with the puzzle stack, you're probably not going to go back. This one, you had a lot of going back and forth. Um, but this one, the narrative felt a bit better and flowed. This one was like super rough. This
Mhm.
what are we doing in this lighthouse? And then like I don't know all these
Visually,
conceits.
exceptional art in both.
Yeah,
We loved how visuals were approached. We loved how icons and symbols were used. Um, the special objects, and anyone who's played Exit knows that every set comes with certain special, peculiar objects,
special
which you're not supposed to look at until you're told to do so.
but please punch it out and put it aside.
Um, so they still had those, but sadly, they felt very on the nose. Like the moment you look at it, okay, I kind of get it,
Mm.
or super vague, which again makes you feel like you're going out of the fiction.
Mm.
For example, in an older Exit game, maybe you'll see a map, and then when you study the map, you realize this and that connection. In this one, for example, there was a piece of parchment paper, and there were two symbols on that parchment paper. But looking at it by itself, why is there a parchment paper with two symbols on the floor in this place?
Yeah,
It didn't make sense.
it
And
it it breaks the fiction because
yeah,
then like because the solution is going you're going to do something with the parchment paper, but it's you as a player and
yeah,
not you as a character doing something with
and
it.
that felt kind of sad.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then okay, then my main frustration is that the scoring system in Exit has always been the amount of time you spend
Mhm.
solving it versus the number of hint cards
You
you
use.
use. Okay,
Mhm.
which is a decent system. So if you don't use hints and you finish within the minimum time, which is typically an hour, then you get perfect marks. Um, and then the impact of getting a clue card is bigger than the impact of spending more time. So
Yes.
in our experience, as competitive as we are, we tend to just invest more time.
Yes.
Um, in this case, was this the rating table is exactly the same as every other Exit game,
Mhm.
which is a little frustrating because assembling the jigsaw puzzles does take time.
Mhm.
um and I can't even imagine, even if you're an expert jigsaw puzzler,
Mhm.
um it's still like very very tight, very
Yes.
tight. We I think the Sacred Temple we finished in about 2 hours. The Deserted Lighthouse took us about three in
And mind you,
total.
these are huge puzzles. Each puzzle is practically the size of this box.
Yeah. Oh
So
yes, we tested it. So
so so it's not like you're just building something small and then moving to the next riddle immediately. You're literally building something that is as big as that cover
and then detailed, and then with the puzzle pieces cut in a manner
that trick you.
that is tricky. So there's a lot going against it, and I'm just saying like I'm not against the time limit and stuff, but I think it needs to be adjusted for scale. Like
Yes.
maybe the minimum time is I don't know 90 minutes, maybe. Or the fact that the box says it is minimum 2 hours, then shouldn't the perfect score be a 2 hour game?
And in some ways, it again breaks the fiction. In previous exit games, the timer was representative of something in the story.
Something's gonna happen.
You had to get out, you're trapped, and you want to escape, and this and that. In these, with the fiction a bit wonky.
I was gonna say wonky.
So, like, you have the lighthouse we're in. Oh, the lighthouse light went out. Now you have to act fast before reasons. So, you now build a puzzle. And again, it had that I don't know how this connects.
Yeah.
But you do understand it's because it wants to have puzzle pieces. I just feel like
I mean, like,
maybe it could have been smaller puzzles that build up to larger
yeah,
ones.
or even like for example, the Sacred Temple is set in like, what was it, Cambodia or something,
Mhm.
and then like so you could always say jungles. So you could say that was this so solve puzzle blah 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 as you work your way through the jungle
Yeah.
and unearth
It could have
or
been,
reveal where the new location.
it could have connected in that way.
It just needs a little massaging of language, and because there are so few places with the flavor text and stuff, then you don't then it's a lot of like, why am I helping this lighthouse person at all? But okay. It's so funny because our Brindlewood Bay game had a lighthouse also. Then I'm like, oh my god, lighthouse again. Okay.
Lots of echoes on everything we're doing, including a dog mayor.
Oh yes. How often do you encounter a mayor who is also the dog of a town? Apparently, we've done it in two different role-playing games.
And I just made it up because it was fun.
Yeah, in,
And
in
then
one
it-
case you made it up. The next one it was part of the published fiction. Games are funny, guys. Okay.
Okay, so to wrap it up, um, do you still recommend Exit the Puzzle?
I think it is an interesting innovation for Exit the game as a series. I don't think I can go as far as recommending it.
Mhm.
At least, okay, I can't recommend these two titles yet. Or if I were to say, if you want to try it, I would try the Sacred Temple more than the Lighthouse, because at least
Mhm.
the Sacred Temple story made more sense to me,
Mm,
and
yes.
then the Sacred Temple had slightly more interesting puzzles.
Yes,
I felt
that's
okay.
true. I will
Um,
agree.
but like and on if I on the whole, original Exit. So
Mhm.
the original Exit games are still pretty solid, and I feel like they work a lot better. So I'm not saying that these are never going to be good. Maybe they will figure it out.
Yeah.
Because like even there are in the first 6 to 9 sets of exits, a third of them were still kind of
Yeah,
duds.
but Exit started strong.
Exit started strong.
Unlock
Unlike
Unlock
Unlock
started
started weak.
But now Unlock is pretty strong.
Okay, so I think what Exit has been faced as a conundrum is that all of their games are they're super one time use.
Because you're
They're
encouraged to be not afraid of to destroy components.
Yeah, so they're card and paper driven. They have never really been strong on an app. So instead of and then I guess now because Unlock is really well in the escape room with an app
Mhm.
game market, then they really wanted to differentiate themselves and they did puzzles.
Yes.
So jigsaw puzzles, and I'm not sure if the experiment is where it needs to be. It's like along the same lines. Cosmos, as the game publisher, has also released something called was it Adventure Inc. Um, which are a bunch of what they describe to be adventure games in a box. But when we finally played it, I didn't realize it was literally like a point and click adventure with like dialogue trees and stuff, and it does feel a little a little old video gamey.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still like, at least we've tried only one, I think, one or two. Not their strongest release yet.
Yes.
But again, there's room to grow. There's room for it to explore.
Um, if you like puzzles, you might find it interesting how this one tries to throw you in a loop.
Yeah,
If you like escape rooms, you may get frustrated.
original
And
exit.
the frustration is not because the riddles aren't good. It's because you don't feel like you're properly armed to solve them.
Yeah,
It's like being given um, four crossword puzzles to solve, but then the clues to solve the puzzles
are not numbered.
are all in the same page,
Yeah, yeah,
and suddenly you're like, so we have to figure out which goes to what, and it feels like that's a way to make it a challenging game, but in other ways it feels like, so now you have to brute force it until you find what fits, and that's not for me a good design as far as escapes are concerned.
yeah. And then we made the mistake, because normally, like, I like, was it escape room games, puzzle games are things that Toby and I can squeeze in at the end of the day. Like
Mhm.
after Baduy Pride, before we go to bed, we have like an hour of time left. We can do an escape room together.
Yes.
And these are not those sorts of games, because suddenly it's like, oh my god, it's like 1, 2 in the morning, and we're still trying to solve this puzzle. So that's a bit of a challenge. I think my biggest concern is that, and this ties to something very distinctly part of the exit line, is there is always an exit certificate in the rule book, which you fill out
Mhm.
with the time you spent, the number of clue cards, your star rating. It's basically your certificate of achievement for the game.
Mhm.
Um, and then part of it is always like, what is your favorite puzzle? What is the trickiest puzzle? And who
Yes.
solved the trickiest puzzle? So in all other exits, I think we always have a clear, like, oh my god, this was my favorite.
Yeah.
Like there's always like, that was super cool.
And we're eager to choose.
We're eager to write it down.
For these two, we were like, okay, I guess we like that one.
And then like the ones that were most difficult to solve were not satisfyingly tricky.
Mhm.
They were just like, how are we supposed to get that? Like, I didn't quite, there a bit of jumps in logic, a bit of leaps, or things like, I didn't realize we should have combined these two things. So it the what is the puzzle, the riddle design in these games don't feel as intuitive or as
Yeah.
coherent. So yeah, so we had a hard time we had a hard time with that part of the experience. And normally we're super like, ooh, okay, because even bad exits, there are good puzzles.
Mhm.
Like there's like, we didn't like the story. Like the riverboat one was like, oh my god, we spent so long on the riverboat one, but we still had like a, ooh, there's a puzzle I really like. This is my favorite puzzle. So I didn't feel that with these sets, and that's kind of sad.
Now, supposedly there are Ravensburg escape puzzles
Another
as well.
publisher.
We haven't seen those. We haven't gotten a chance to try those. So once we do, though, we will talk about those when the time comes. But for now,
Yeah, I'm not against the addition of jigsaw puzzles to these things. That I will go on record. So
Mhm.
like, I still had a fun time putting the puzzles together because they were challenging. I don't have a guide, and then when you put it all together, okay, what is this? The picture doesn't make sense.
I think my final say is that the exit style of destroying components as part of the gameplay actually works against exit puzzle games
Oh yeah,
because the puzzles do look nice. When you build the puzzle afterwards in the end, they are nice, beautiful visuals that you almost want to, like, have someone go through it and see that final product as well, which makes you then suddenly think, oh, if only I can solve all this and not destroy things, so I can let someone try it. In the previous exit games, since there wasn't any large final visual, um, destroying things, going through the experience felt right. It felt like, I went through
still
this, I'll
painful.
keep moving forward. But here, since you do end up with four massive, colorful images at the end of the game and a lot of components you can't use anymore, it kind of feels wrong.
Yeah. Oh, and I will go as far, which is a minor spoiler, but, and I think to Toby's point, that normally exit games, one of the fun parts is figuring out what to destroy. So far in these first two, the puzzles are intact. There is no instruction, there is no riddle yet that is solved by destroying a puzzle, which I don't know if I had the heart to do. Cards were already painful, but then we got used to it over the course of the exits. But the jigsaw puzzles, I don't know. So when you end the game, you will end with four intact jigsaw puzzles that you could put together again. They're not exactly puzzles I would frame because they are still images that support the larger escape room puzzle experience, which means there are weird objects in unusual positions, there's hidden text and all that, all that fun stuff. But um but yeah, so it's just this weird, like, then I have puzzles that I might want to finish, but I might want to do again, but I don't know why. And I don't think I don't need a frameable puzzle, but I'm just saying the game will leave you with this many components. These so far these booklets also, because the riddle delivery system also remain intact. So that it's a lot of stuff that feel protected now. So actually, the first exit, by right, like if you're super visual or something, you could get away with not destroying anything.
Mm-hmm.
The This one, I think there was more deliberate need to destroy things, but technically this one we could have not destroyed anything.
Yeah, but you know,
But we embrace it. We embrace one-time components. Uh, yeah. So that's I guess that's it so far. So I'm still more excited to, like, ooh, we have an unplayed regular exit that I want to do. Um, thus far, when we checked the Cosmos website, there are no other uh, exit the game plus puzzle sets announced or released just
Mhm.
yet. But I don't necessarily think that they're done with it. I'm sure they're gonna figure out, because both of these are 2021, I think, or 2020 releases, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I sort of recall there is one more though. Let me just double check.
So the Sacred Temple was a 2020 game published by Inca and Marcus Brand and Julian Vorgang, whereas the Lighthouse one is just Inca and Marcus Brand, and it is a 2020 game as well. Yeah, but I looked at the Cosmos
So,
site.
Kidnapped in Fortune City isn't a puzzle game, or Cursed Labyrinth.
Cursed Labyrinth is a regular exit. Kidnap and
Yeah, they're
Fortune is a
both
regular
regular.
exit.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it's really just these two right now.
yeah.
So we must find those Ravensburg escape puzzles.
Yeah, I don't know, and especially in this pandemic, we're a super sucker for solving these things. It's something to do while waiting for things to change. Okay,
All right, so that's our, I guess you could say, our review of the Escape the Game puzzle series.
exit the game.
Exit. Let's exit the game puzzle series. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we shall cover more games every Monday.
Yeah, and then we have a pseudo theme apparently for the episode titles this week. All of them have the plus symbol. And okay, by right, I did it initially for exit because it is exit the game plus puzzle on Board Game Geek. But then yeah, all of them end up with puzzles. So are we gonna do a thumbnail thing?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Okay, we're gonna do a thumbnail. So we gotta YouTube it. Okay. So stupid, but it really helps though.
Thank you for watching.
Okay, if you have questions or suggestions for future episodes, you can fill up the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. You can follow us on Twitter, Altobino Shade, RG Sunico.
You can also check out our blog, badaypray.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us.
Feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below and let us know, what did you think about this experience? Do you think escape room games and jigsaw puzzles make sense to you? And or escape room games in general? Why are we playing this as board games and not escape rooms? And do subscribe, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky,
And I'm Toby.
and this is Baduy Pride. Good night, everyone.